everyone, and welcome to another fabulous episode of the Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities presents the Hometown Haunts podcast. I'm your host, Kat Cloco, and tonight with me, like always, we have Christina Wald and Jen Kohler, and they're here in the shadows somewhere. We have social media, of course, and you can follow us at Cin Cabinet Curio on Twitter and Cincy Cabinet of Curiosities on Instagram. And we do have a brand spanking new email for all of you lovely spooky lovers out there to send us your hometown haunts. It is hometownhauntedmail@gmail.com. So please email us your stories. I want to hear about them, especially with tonight's location. We will be talking about the dark side of Kings Island Amusement Park in Mason, Ohio. We're an official podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. You can find us at iTunes at Cincy Cabinet of Curiosities. Please rate and review us there and on YouTube so other spooky lovers like you can find us. Since we don't have a guest this week, we have a weird thing we saw this week with Christina. Christina, take it away.
Everything's weird.
Everything is weird, but
this kind of ties into our haunt later too. And this story I've been seeing floating around on different podcasts and stuff, that somebody found several creepy dolls nailed to trees in a forest in mysterious circumstances. Now, when I read something like this, and after reading the story, it's clear somebody just did it to be spooky and creepy. There's nothing really behind it, but some older woman found it, and it said a woman was terrified after coming across a collection of creepy dolls tied and nailed to trees when she was taking a stroll in the forest in England's Shepherdshire. The 64-year-old woman, who is a theater practitioner at Walsall Manor Hospital, was on a lockdown stroll when she made the unsettling discovery. And it says this site used to be the home to Brindley Health Military Hospital during the First World War, and was able to treat around 1,000 soldiers at the time. And then the buildings were acquired as a colliery to house miners along with their families. The site was then known as Brindley Village and had a school and a working men's club. And the village lasted till the 1950s. So I think it's a pretty abandoned area. I think stories like this are funny that they go viral because it's probably just somebody that was bored in lockdown that posted a bunch of these. Listen to me, posted, see, we even talk in the language of.
Oh, we're deep in it now, ladies.
Yeah, but somebody obviously made this display in the woods and took pictures, to affect someone. I doubt there was anything behind it other than just to be,
creepy.
Yeah. But it does. You look at the pictures, and we'll put the link in the show notes. It is really creepy looking. And there are a lot of spooky stories about dolls and stuff. And a lot of it could be for a variety of reasons. You have talked about possessed dolls before. I don't think these were. I think these were just somebody, sort of having fun and just trying to scare people. But
yeah.
I know,
I always say with these, sorry to interrupt, I always say with these particular urban legends is how many Metallica symbols and anarchy symbols do you see spray painted around the area? Because that tells you exactly the mindset of the people who left it.
Yeah, it's probably
usually there's a lot.
It's probably emos or art school students thinking they're being cool. It was probably someone's senior project.
Maybe. Yeah, I can see that.
I could see that.
Yeah, I could see friends of mine back in high school doing that. They're like, I am so deep. What is it? They're nailing dolls to trees.
Yeah. Tied up dolls.
It's too cliche.
It symbolizes.
Yes, you'd think they'd go for something more deep, but low-hanging fruit is often what the young art student goes for.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm being edgy.
So, moral of story to all of you aspiring art students out there and the art students that are currently out there. Don't tie or nail dolls to trees. It's been done. It's very trite. Please be more creative. Yeah.
I did it in photography school with Barbie doll heads and snow.
I could list a top 5 list of things. Like if you're an art student and you're wanting to be edgy, we should like have a list of things that you think are edgy, but your art teacher has seen 1,000 times. And they're like, oh,
spoken
look.
from an art teacher.
Oh, look, they're, it's like the list. Oh, look, they're doing this. I've only seen this 1,000 times before. So,
I mean, if I saw that while walking in the woods, I'd be like, oh, cool, let me take pictures. And I would think it's kind of funny.
Yeah, that's what I'd do too. It's like, hey, look, easy Instagram post.
Yeah. And actually, if you are into creepy dolls, there is, and hopefully, once COVID's over, we can visit the Ventriloquist Museum in Northern Kentucky.
Yeah.
I know I've had friends get some really creepy pictures there.
I mean, it would be one thing if the dolls were just found scattered about, right? Mm-hmm. But they were deliberately nailed to a tree.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I would think maybe just one doll over 5 or 6 would be creepier.
Yeah, just one. You see, be understated.
Because you're like,
when you're like, what? I have to do 10, it's overkill, and it feels like it has less meaning, It's like you're feeling real emo, and you're like, I'm going to nail up 10 dolls.
Who angered you today?
Everybody.
I'm the coolest artist. I'm the coolest artist.
Hormones.
But anyway, so we have a haunt later that kind of deals with a doll. So I kind of picked this story, and plus people were talking about it. And it's amazing how these stories. Perhaps the more interesting thing is how viral these stories get. This was from an Indiana paper, and it's talking about a story from Daily Mail in England.
Yeah.
No, it's a Daily Mail story. That explains a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That comment was full of judgment.
but was it judgment or just truth? Let's be honest.
Depends on where you want to go with that. So, shall we move on to Brandon?
Yes, please do. This is our new segment where we're going to be supporting local comic creators.
Yeah. Christina and I are working, and Jen, you're in photography, but Christina and I are in 2D art. So supporting local artists, I think, would be something all 3 of us are super into. And one of the artists, he was actually on an earlier episode of Hometown Haunts, is Brandon Wagner. He's our little friend. Hi. Okay, he's really not that little because he's taller than me. But he did the music hall horror portion of our first Cincinnati A Cabinet of Curiosities comics anthology, which is a wonderful retelling of the very haunted Cincinnati Music Hall. Well, now he has his own webcomic out. It's on Tapas, and it is called The Good Nights. It's adorable. And the first entire chapter is out, and I'll read you the details that he has posted. It says about the comic. It says, woken up by the magic of dreams, a group of toys must band together to uncover the secrets of a strange kingdom, a mysterious enemy, and themselves. Follow Felix the toy mouse and his friends as they confront the shadows of nightmares as the Good Nights. And you can also follow Brandon on Instagram. He is Brandon Wagner Comics. I'm not spelling that one out for you because it's super long. But it will be in our detailed show notes.
Yes, it will be in the show notes. And actually, in the next coming weeks, we're going to be talking about issue 2 of Cabinet of Curiosities. We have the lineup, and we'll be announcing who the lineup is and start, maybe having some of the people working on it. Besides Kat and myself, who are working on the next issue, and she's editing it. We'll be bringing people on and talking about lots of great stuff in this next issue.
Oh, it's going to be another fun issue. Excuse me, I'm getting all excited. Yeah, it's a fun issue. Tim Fuller comes back as our art director. Christina is our social media manager. I am the editor, and we're all Christina, you are working on actually a previous episode of ours, but we'll get more into that later. Look, a hook for everyone.
Yes,
stay tuned.
Yes. But anyway,
also. Yeah, just before we leave Brandon's segment, if you are a Cincinnati tri-state local artist and have your own comic series or project you would like to feature, you can also email that to us at, shall we just say, hometownhauntedmail@gmail.com, and we'll contact you for information about your works, how we can read it, and share it with everyone else on the show.
I'm having
Sorry,
a really
got too
strong
many-
sense of deja vu right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
we
it's
do
gone.
this every week.
No. Yeah. It seems like it's happened before. Just that. How do you explain deja vu? I don't know.
Do you see any repeating black cats?
No.
Well, that's good.
Just the strong sense of what you just said, and sorry for interrupting you. That whole little.
No, that's cool.
Okay.
Don't know.
We're going to note this.
What does deja vu mean? Really?
The strong feeling that this has happened before.
Yeah. I get it a lot, actually.
The force is with you.
I think a lot of people get it. I get deja vu a lot when I'm drawing, and then I'm like, oh, is this deja vu, or do I just not do very many things?
That's what I've been asking for the past year.
It's sort of like, well, I kind of feel like I've done this before, but I have. I'm every day painting and working on something, so it's not like what I do varies that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it's I have dreams, and then what I've dreamt will happen, but it's nothing significant. Like it's something just like a simple conversation or an action. It's never anything of significance, really, but it's like, and sometimes it's stronger. Yes, I definitely remember dreaming that. And other times I'm like, oh, that's just weird. Where the hell is that coming from?
It might be a cool topic.
That's what I was just writing down. I actually have a really good deja vu story, but this is not the episode for it.
No, sorry.
And all our listeners just went, oh.
We'll collect it for a future episode because, I mean, doing one of these each week could never have too many ideas.
Yeah.
That's true.
So,
very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we could do 2 deja vu episodes and say, wait, I feel like I've done this before.
We should be sure to wear the same outfits and style our hair the same and everything.
That was a dad joke level 9,000.
Hey,
as Christina does a spit take with her water.
Hey, it's happened before.
Yeah. All right. So, shall we get into the meat of the episode?
Yes.
All right. So, tonight's topic is the dark side of Kings Island Amusement Park. It has a lot of haunts. It has a lot of legends. And my goodness, Kings Island has a lot of history. Before I get into it, all 3 of us have been to Kings Island.
Yes.
Yes. Christina is nodding yes, because she has already muted herself and exited. She's just like, bye.
I'm doing that now.
I didn't mean to run you. I'm sure we can have some fun stories about going to Kings Island. I like Kings Island. It's fun. Like a lot of our listeners already know, I grew up in a cornfield. So being able to be so close to a huge amusement park is really fun. Until this year, where we could only drive past it in its cold skeleton as it just sat there. You waved past it on 71. Anyway, so it has a long, long history. We're not getting into the history of every single amusement attraction. There are dozens upon dozens of very good YouTube videos. I'm looking at you, Yesterworld, or Defunctland, that have really good episodes that are specifically about like the Beast or the Bat or any of that history. We're not getting into this. We're talking about deaths at Kings Island. There are a lot. They're all widely known. And we dug into the newspapers archive to dig up the real truth behind them. A lot of the names, a lot of ages. So these are all real people. until we get to the folklore bit, and then we just run wild because things get weird here in Ohio. So, going back to the earlier part of the 20th century, we have Coney Island, which is our small amusement park that's right on the Ohio River. Problem with that is every spring, the Ohio River has this habit of flooding, and it would take out all of Coney Island every single year and all the houses along the Ohio River, and we'd have to wait a few weeks. Well, the people who developed that particular amusement park got fed up with this and decided to make a sister amusement park further north, and that is Kings Island. The Taft Broadcasting Company actually owned at the time in the late 1960s both of these locations. And they expanded the amusement park up to Mason, which is about 26 miles north of Cincinnati. And Kings Island officially opened in 1972. Many of the original rides that were at Coney Island got moved up to Kings Island. The most notable, there's 3 that I could find that are still functioning today. That would be the Racer, which was known as the Shooting Star back then at Coney Island. The Bavarian Beetle, which no longer is there anymore, but dang it, I wish it was. Even though I think I just said that it was around. Anyway, and then there's also the Junior Wooden Roller Coaster. At the time in 1972, it was named the Scooby-Doo. It's still up. They rename them every single time the entire park gets bought, and that happens frequently. Kings Island derives its name from both Kings Mills area, which is the farming community that Kings Island sits on, and Coney Island. So they just put first, second, smush it together. Kings Island, great. Many American TV sitcoms were filmed there, especially when it first opened. The most notable 2 are The Brady Bunch from 1973. I have seen this episode, and The Partridge Family from 1972. And they're great little romps around the amusement park, trying to highlight all the fun shenanigans that you can get into at a mid-level sized amusement park in Ohio in the early 70s. Anyway, so Kings Island was originally owned by the Taft Broadcasting Company. Then it was purchased by Paramount Communications Incorporated. Then Kings Entertainment Company, Viacom, and the current owners are Cedar Fair, who have Cedar Point and a whole bunch of other amusement parks around North America. And they're running it currently. It seems to be doing well. They just opened a Giga roller coaster in 2020. I think it's called the Orion. It looks really cool. And of course, because of COVID, it's been mostly closed. So I don't think there was a whole lot of activity going on in the past year, but they're still growing. For those of you who aren't they don't know Kings Island, they're out of the state, out of the area. Kings Island is divided into several sections. We have the Action Zone, which was built in 1974, Coney Island Mall, 1972, Area 72, which is one of the new areas built in 2020. It used to be a sub-area of Coney Island Mall. We have the International Street, which is original, Oktoberfest, which is original, 1972, Planet Snoopy, original, Rivertown, which is also original. And then in 1989, we had Soak City built, which is the large water park that is located directly west of the original amusement park. And then we also have a few different special seasonal activities. We have Halloween Haunt, originally debuted as Fear Fest in 2000, and Winterfest, which originally ran from 1982 to 1992, brought back for a hot second in 2005, and then resumed again in 2017. So those are all the fun things that you can do at Kings Island. There's a lot of fun roller coasters. Before I talk about the deaths at the island, at Kings Island, not on the island, my favorite roller coaster is the Beast. Jen, which one's your favorite roller coaster?
The Beast.
Yes!
The Beast and Diamondback. Those 2 are my favorites.
Those 2 are my favorites as well. And they're in Rivertown. So it makes it really easy just to bop from one to the other. Christina?
I always liked the Vortex, and I'm sad because they took it down this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
That was my favorite. That was a great one. And I the Beast is okay. I really do like Diamondback. I'm trying to think what other coasters they have there. The Racer still is fun.
Yeah, I love the Racer. That one is great. Fun fact, they flipped the seats backwards. That first time they ever did it was in 1982.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that one's fun. And for those who don't know, the Racer is two different roller coaster tracks that are parallel to one another, and then they jet out at opposite sides. You see it really commonly now, but back when it was built in the 1920s, I believe is when the Shooting Star originated. This was a big novelty, and it's all wooden. So the thing is clanky. You're not going to want to ride it twice in a row. The Beast you can barely ride twice. Yeah,
those old wood coasters really do kind of shake you around. They've gotten better with getting the G-forces on roller coasters so that they get the maximum G's with minimum shaking you around, which the old coasters really do hurt, jostle you. I mean, a lot of people complain Vortex actually does jostle you quite a bit.
Yeah, I got whiplash on Vortex, so
yeah.
And then also I was an idiot and wore earrings. Yeah. The earrings punctured. There we go. The back of my ears. But I love riding Racer because you're going down and you're like, this is nostalgic as you're going through. I can make Jen laugh.
I like the very first time I rode Racer, I think they were still doing it backwards and it hurt my back really bad. So I didn't ride it again until like a year or two ago. Oh. And I liked it better. My problem now is that I have trouble fitting into the older rides because of my belly and my boobs. Banshee.
It's cushioning.
You would think it hurts.
No, but you get squished in weird directions.
With Banshee, because I'm sorry, well endowed, if I'm not sitting, they do have a row on the cars for bigger people. And I didn't know this, but when I was in the rows with, not for normally sized people, my boobs, over the head, it would push me in and compress my lungs. So I couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe. No. And by the end of the ride, I would scream, right? Because it is a fun ride. Like I love riding it. And I couldn't breathe. And I started to freak out because they sit you there for a second. And then one time I went and people got stuck on it and they had to stay on it while they fixed it. And it was more than 5 minutes. And
that's a recurring thing.
So I can't ride that one anymore because I will have a panic attack and probably have a heart attack.
Okay.
Because the thought of suffocation, I'm terrified of. So Banshee, I love you. You're an awesome ride. But I'm going to have to cut my boobs off to ride you. That's the only way I'm going to be able to ride it again.
All right. And on that note, we're going to talk about Deaths at Kings Island.
I'll mute myself now.
Okay. I will say roller coasters getting stuck mid-stride is very common, not just at Kings Island, but any amusement park. It's worse when he's stuck upside down or something though. Anyway, so the Deaths at Kings Island did not take long after it was established. Our first one, and by far, in my opinion, an interesting one, was of John McCann of Morrow, Ohio. He was 20 years old, and on July 24th, 1976, he was a ranger in the Lyon County Safari area of Kings Island. Now, Lyon County Safari no longer exists now. It was where Son of Beast was located, which is, I forget which Giga Coaster's there now, but it's going to be on the east side of the 700-acre complex. He was mauled by lions after he left his protected Jeep. Investigators believe he left the vehicle to go relieve himself. And that's how the poor man died. It's John McCann, and there's a lot of Johns. Just preempting everything. If your name is John, don't work at Kings Island because you seem to die. Yeah, that's my poor attempt at a joke. Anyway, May 13th, 1983, a high school senior from Delaware, Ohio, John Harder, was killed when he fell 200 feet from an observation deck at the park's replica Eiffel Tower. Harder's body was struck by the counterweight of the tower's elevator. He had climbed over a safety railing to be positioned where the accident occurred. Rumors say that he was also decapitated in the incident, but that is not true. Sorry, Jen. He seemed to, reading the reports, he seemed to have actually fallen directly onto the elevator itself, and that smack is what caused trauma. And I'm not a doctor, so I don't know what happened after that, but he did die. And John Harder and John McCann are two very frequently referenced urban legends that we'll get to a little bit later in the show. But they did indeed exist, and they did indeed die on the property. 1986, a 26-year-old man died after he plunged into a 2-foot deep fountain from a 13-foot high perch. He died 2 weeks later in the hospital. August 5th, 1989, a 39-year-old musician was killed by lightning. He was rumored to be a tuba player in a clown band who was struck in the parking lot. And I couldn't find any information to back that statement up, but there was indeed the musician killed by lightning in the parking lot of Kings Island. That is also a very interesting way to go. We also have Black Sunday, which, if you look at the Wikipedia article, at least when I accessed it today, Black Sunday is not mentioned. I had to go through and go, I know there's a Black Day that happened at Kings Island. It's not Friday, but I had to go through my days of the week before I remembered it was Black Sunday. This was June 9th, 1991. We had 3 people die at Kings Island within an hour of each other. And this made the news internationally, galactically, because the way that these people died was just code violations up the wazoo. And although they did get cited for 2 of the deaths, the third, they walked away without getting any real penalties. So the first one was Candy Taylor. Excuse me. A 32-year-old from Toledo, Ohio, who was riding alone in the Flight Commander ride when she fell 60 feet to her death. Her blood alcohol level at the time of the Warren County coroner, when they examined her, was 0.30. So she was intoxicated, and it's suspected that she passed out of her restraints. In the following investigation, it was found that it was possible for a single occupant to slide out of the harness if the other harness had not been properly closed. At the time of her death, Taylor had been sitting alone in the cab, and it's suspected that when she passed out, she knocked the controls with her legs, forcing it to spin, and she just basically slid out of the cab and onto the ground below in front of, I am sure, quite a number of horrified patrons. The Department of Agriculture ruled the ride design was defective and therefore cleared the park of any wrongdoing in Taylor's death. An hour before Taylor had died, Timothy Binning, he was 22, entered the Oktoberfest pond, which had an aeration electrical fault, electrifying the water. Before Binning could warn his friend William Hathcote, who was 20 at the time, went in after him, followed by security guard Daryl Robertson, also 20. Hathcote and Robertson died of electrocution while Binning survived the incident, but upon further reports is severely disabled from this incident. OSHA fined Kings Island $23,500 for the various violations with electricity in the pond. Part of the fine was $5,000 for the lack of a GFCI protection on a pump circuit, which is probably what electrified the water, killing the two men. There are two more miscellaneous health-related deaths at Kings Island. On July 26, 2003, a 34-year-old woman suffered a heart attack while riding the Bat. She died the next day. She did not know she had an enlarged heart, and rides being the way they are, it forced her into cardiac arrest. And then in 2009, a man died after riding the Firehawk, but no more details are given. So those are the deaths that have happened on the property. We do have dozens more that are injuries or deaths that happened after, like the premises. One and the two miscellaneous ones happened after they were at the park, but riding the rides was probably what caused it. Yet again, not a lawyer, not a doctor. This is just me reading the newspapers and telling you what was reported. So now on to really, I think, the fun and whimsical part of this episode, which is the ghosts and lore. And this is why I think we're all here. And the first one, the most notoriously well-known one, is the Girl in Blue. Have you two heard of the Girl in Blue? No, I am getting shaking heads. So the Girl in Blue is also known as the Tram Girl, and she's said to haunt the amusement park at night, specifically the main gate, the parking lot, parts of the water park, and the KI and Miami mini railroad that they have running through. And I say mini because it's a short circuit railroad, but it actually has a full-size locomotive. It's very fun to ride and very soothing and great for young kids. Anyway, so she is said to be all over that. And it's fun because one of the King family cabins, and I did find photos of it, but not ones that I took, is actually used as a prop on that railroad circuit. It's an authentic early American cabin. It's a 2-story cabin, and they used to use it, according to people that I know that work there, back in the 70s and early 80s as a cowboys and Indians. They would be fighting with live actors around this cabin, and they have it all staged. And you can still see it today. You go right past it. So what makes the Girl in Blue, or Tram Girl, very, very distinct is that she has bright blonde hair, blue eyes, and wears a very distinctive blue dress. And she is known for causing playful mayhem around that area of the park. In the parking lot, she likes to really startle delivery drivers and tram operators by basically popping out from behind cars. Be like, hey! I read one instance where a delivery driver thought he had hit her and stopped the car or stopped the truck and went around trying to figure out where she was and realized he didn't hit anyone. So she just likes to go around and prank and startle people. She seems to be just a fun, mischievous spirit. What's interesting is she was known as Sarah for a really long time, even when I started collecting stories from Kings Island. And she's still witnessed to this day. One of the stories that I found from 2020, early 2020, I guess, or 2019, I'm sorry, was that somebody saw a blue glow along a fence line really late at night. This must have been a staff member, because you're really not allowed to go around the KI and Miami railroad lines, but there is a back lot area that crosses the railroad and meets up with the water park and the amusement park. And in this area is where this staff member saw a blue light, and then they got pelted with little pebbles, which is a very common poltergeist activity in that area. It happens a lot to another location that I'll read about in a minute. The fun thing is that she's been known as Sarah for decades. And this is up until around 2012 when we get the Ghost Hunters episode from the Sci-Fi Channel. It's season 8, episode 1, titled Roller Ghoster. And in this episode, they specifically call her Missouri Jane. And what's interesting is there's actually a headstone for Missouri Jane Galliner. Galliner. I think Galliner. We'll go with Galliner. She was 5 years old when she died in 1846. And the urban legend says that she drowned in a pond that is where the Whitewater Canyon rafting ride is. But historians really think she died of cholera, and her family moved away. And they moved to, where is it? I know it's Illinois. Vienna, Illinois. So they just left her grave there and moved to another state. But yeah, since then, people who have seen the ghost now call her Missouri Jane, and that's her actual name. Missouri's her first name. Missouri is her first name. Jane's her middle name, and Galliner is her last name. The next very widely known ghost is Tower Johnny, which I think, have you heard of Tower Johnny before? No, says Jen. Yes, says Christina. So Tower Johnny is basically the ghost of John Hartler. Oh no, I already forgot his last name. I'm just going to say the ghost of John. So Tower Johnny is the ghost of John, who died in 1983, and his ghost has been seen wandering around the base of the Eiffel Tower as well as that kind of international plaza, but also people have witnessed him from the observatory deck where he died. And apparently, whenever there is like electrical issues, not only at the Eiffel Tower, but around the park as a whole, they will blame it on John's ghost, to the point where, according to some staff members, trip sensors without any explanation are now called Johnnies around the park, around both the amusement and the water park, which I'm like, well, that's a really interesting way of localizing your folklore to explain for tripped sensors. Okay, going back to the racer, we have Racer Boy. Have you two heard of Racer Boy? No, okay. Racer Boy is one of the first that I learned about. He is said to be a ghost of a young boy about elementary school, so you're looking 5 to 10 years old, who wears complete white from head to toe. And he haunts the area right in front of the racer. So that's in the Coney Island Mall area. And he'll approach people and just kind of startle guests. Like he'll just stand next to them and they turn around and there's this kid wearing all white and they just get freaked out and look for a staff member to say, hey, there's a lost child. And when they turn around, he's not there. The thing that is more interesting is that he's been seen on security cam footage riding the roller coaster or standing on the track at the top of the hill before you launch into the rickety joy that is the racer. Mostly, I think it's on, is it the red track that is further east? I think. I can't remember. It's one of the doesn't matter. It's just a fun legend that he stands at the top of the hill and that security guards or people monitoring the roller coaster have witnessed him there. Another interesting bit for me is that you would think, since the racer was the shooting star, or at least bits of it were the shooting star from Coney Island, I kind of assumed that he just followed from Coney Island because of the way that he's described, being in like pants and a shirt and kind of a bowl haircut. I'm like, yeah, that could be 1920s tennis wear, I guess. But actually, his stories originate in the 1990s, which I find really late for ghost stories and urban legends to start proliferating. It's just, or perfect, to start existing. Because so many of our, at least American ghost stories and urban legends start in the 70s. And here's one that starts in the 90s organically on its own. I don't know who came up with it, but I love the story. And yeah, it kind of reminds me of some of the ghost stories that you get from Walt Disney World, actually, where you, especially in the Haunted Mansion, where you have people that will show up on the cam footage, or in the Tower of Terror, I think at Disneyland in California. Um, yeah. So Whitewater Canyon Rafting Ride, which it's a long name because they keep changing the actual name of the ride. It's I believe in the in the same area as the Beast. So talking to staff members before, this is the area that area between where the water park and where the amusement park meet tends to be the creepiest place in the entire park. This is where the old King's family used to live. That's where their cabin is. That's where the settlements really are. Dog Street Cemetery, I think I accidentally glossed over that bit, is about 2 miles away. So and the family that lived in that area is also buried in that cemetery. So what staffers have reported, and I've also read on forums and also read in books, is that disembodied voices are very common in that area, especially of giggling children, which is when you know everything is closed and all small children are out of the building or property. That's very creepy to hear. Pelting rocks or pebbles on Tower 2 is very, very, very common, and they can't figure out why. They don't think it's raccoons, they don't think it's pigeons or squirrels or possums, because it is with purpose, if that makes sense. They'll be working, they'll be watching, or they'll be cleaning up late at night and they'll get hit with one, and then hit with two, and then hit with three, and it just comes, it doesn't feel random. It feels like it's done with purpose, trying to get somebody's attention. To the point where the staff members have called the ghost or poltergeist in that area Woody, which I think is fun. But the girl in blue has also been witnessed in that area. So could it be actually her? Is Woody the girl in blue? What is there? This is where lore just takes off and you have fun with it. Like I said earlier, the Whitewater Canyon rafting ride is where the girl in blue was supposedly, where she drowned, according to folklore. So, and then finally, we have the Beast, Jen and I's favorite. And this one has glowing red eyes have been reported in the forest at night as guests ride the Beast. As you're being flung around those wooden curves on that delightfully rickety track, people have looked out. I have looked out to try to find red eyes, and I can't find any. So, and that, my friends, did I actually talk about the Dog Street Cemetery? I think I accidentally glossed over it. Okay. You may need to edit this one in, Christina. I'm sorry. Got too many tabs open. So, Dog Street Cemetery, hidden beside the north parking lot between Great Wolf Lodge and Kings Island main entrance, is the inactive cemetery known as Dog Street Cemetery. After a recent remodel, it is now more difficult to stop and take photos at this cemetery because the parking lot ticket wicket is right next to it. But you will be able to see the cemetery as you drive in. It's directly to your right. It's not very big. Sneeze and you'll miss it. But it is actually the home cemetery for at least 3 families. So the cemetery has had a few different names through the years. Commonly known as Dog Street Cemetery. It's also known as the Dill Graveyard, the Hoff Family Cemetery, J.D. Hoff Cemetery, Kings Island Cemetery, and Union Methodist Cemetery, which is its actual formal name. It's a real cemetery. Those aren't props that they leave up year round, even though they do build fake tombstones for the Halloween haunts. And we do have a ghost story associated with one of the members of the cemetery. Dog Street gets its name because of the fact that the street that existed before Kings Island was built kind of had a dog leg looking road to it. So they just called it Dog Street. It is an early American cemetery it was originally established in 1803. It was used up until 1890, and used up until 1890. Revolutionary War veteran Peter Monfort, which I know I included a photo of his headstone, is the most prominent burial there, having served in Brickenhoff's Regiment, New York Militia in the Revolutionary War. He died in 1823, so he is the most notable, other than Missouri Jane, who I will talk about a little bit later, but her headstone is very prominent and is one of the few, as well as the Monfort families. You can actually still read the engravings on their headstones. Since a lot of these people have been around since 1803, their headstones are a little bit worn, but as I was just saying, most of the headstones carvings are weathered away, but out of all of them stands out, which is 5-year-old Missouri Jane Galliner, and I already talked about her death. Also, since 1980, 17 of the original 69 headstones in the cemetery have gone missing. So our PSA for this episode is please return them if you happen to know where they are, so that they can fix them and put them back. So, okay, that was my quick and dirty history of the Kings Island dark side. What do you think?
I mean, I've been going to Kings Island since the 70s, and I didn't know there was a cemetery there.
Wow. Because as soon as we went in the first time, we passed the cemetery, and I'm like, Mike, stop! He's like, no. But at the time, you could very easily park right next to the cemetery, so we jumped out, and I took some very poor quality cell phone photos.
But I do remember... Oh, go on. Sorry, Jen.
I was just going to say, I was never aware of it either until I started going through the photo archives at work. And I would always try to make a note when I would go to look for it, but then I would forget. And I didn't actually see it until they did the renovations. And you could see it as you're pulling in. Mm-hmm. But then once I'm in the park, I forget about it, and I forget to look for it because it's a curvy street. And if I try to look for it, I'm going to hit something. So I besides that glance of it as you're going in, I never really noticed.
And I think they built it like that on purpose. I couldn't find the article to pull all the quotes, but back in 1970, when they broke ground and were building, it's a 700-acre property.
Wow.
And the engineer had to send all of his men. It was a forested area when they actually started looking for the cemetery. And he sent his crew and I think the sheriff's department through the forest trying to find this cemetery because they wanted to mark it off so they didn't destroy it. But they also were very clever with the way that they put the cemetery up against the parking lot so that you don't notice it when you're going in. You're so focused on what's in front of you, the way that it's tucked away to the right, you ignore it, especially with all the foliage around there. Mm-hmm. But apparently this cemetery was just vastly overgrown with myrtle and trees. And the Deerfield County is actually responsible for the maintenance up until I think Kings Island took over. And they just kind of let it go since 1890. They're like, meh, it's inactive. Why bother? And so some of the urban legends that I read about were that, especially about Sarah from the earlier decades, were that they missed her headstone and they paved over her grave, which is why Sarah haunts the parking lot in that area.
Interesting. What year did the person fall from the Eiffel Tower?
1983.
Okay, because I remember hearing people talk about that. When I was in college, I went to college with a lot of people that worked at Kings Island. Heard a lot of stories about, and I actually do remember the deaths in 91 too, because that was a big story. It was interesting because it used to be when you go to Kings Island, I haven't noticed it since, but like in the late 80s, early 90s, when you go to Kings Island, like if you would feed the fish, the fish in the ponds would like rise to the surface and push other fish up, and they'd writhe around. It was really weird. You'd see all these fish, like they'd push other fish and they'd be flopping on top of each other. It was a really weird thing.
Was it a bunch of koi? I can see
it was
koi
a bunch of
doing
carp.
that.
It was a bunch of carp. And I don't know if they still have in all of their areas of water. Do they still have the Timberwolf performance area too in Kings Island, or is that gone?
I believe so. Yeah.
That was added much later. I mean, there's actually a couple videos you can watch on YouTube that talk about the construction of Kings Island and how it was like part of a trend to put all sorts of, I suppose with the popularity of Disney and stuff, was to put a bunch of amusement parks close to, a lot of different urban centers. One thing that's interesting about the deaths that you've talked about is people being really drunk. I mean, a lot of times a death and injuries at amusement parks are caused by people doing stupid stuff that they shouldn't be doing. When I started going to amusement parks as a kid, there was a lot less restraints on you, like the ones you were describing, Jen. But because people do stupid stuff, they have to practically like strap you in there, like all those restraints. People that design roller coasters. I actually designed a little roller coaster for my senior thesis when I was in college. So
fun.
I did a lot of stuff about roller coaster designers and stuff, and that you don't need to have that many. I mean, you'd be safe without them, but people are so stupid and do things that they shouldn't on these things that endanger them and others. That's why they have you strapped in like that, not because you need to be that strapped in, but because people always want to do something really dumb that's going to hurt them or someone else.
Well, when I was a kid, so growing up in St. Louis, I went to Six Flags, and I didn't move to Cincinnati until 1995. So it was like a rite of passage to see if you could get out of the restraint.
That explains a lot of these accidents now.
Yeah, the loop-de-loop ones, of course, always had the overhead ones, but like things like the Racer or the Beast. My brother mentioned to me a year or so ago that the Beast didn't used to have the seatbelt that it has now. It just had the bar. And that is a relatively new thing, I think. And I'm like, I thought it was always there, but I guess it wasn't.
No. I went to the Beast when it first opened. I remember the year that it opened because it kept breaking down and people would have to walk miles back.
Oh, no.
You were like in the middle of nowhere, and the people would have to walk all the way back to the park because oh
my God,
because it's a pretty long ride.
Awful.
But they just had the little bar that went down. I mean, I think with the barrel rolls and stuff too, I mean, there is a little bit of forces that kind of keep you glued to the, but they keep you very.
Actually, I was going to say the first roller coaster I rode I was 7 or 8, rode it with my dad, who had a big belly. So I was a skinny kid. So when I first rode it and I was lifted up out of it, I thought I was going to fall out. So I just grabbed onto my dad because I thought I was going to fall out, and it scared the crap out of me, but went back again because it was fun.
At the time when I was researching, and I don't know if this is still the case, but people actually got hurt on rides other than roller coasters more because people did stupider things on them. And you're not as strapped in to the other rides. And actually probably the most injuries are caused on like when you have those little church festivals and stuff like that. Those rides, are less inspected. Like the roller coasters are probably the safest because they're inspected the most because there's more perceived danger. But you're probably more in danger. There's a lot of them like that you could probably fall out of because they like those swinging chairs, and I don't know how many people have been hurt on those, but anything like where you're probably can get out and high in the air is probably not good.
Yeah, there's a few little ghost stories here and there sprinkled mostly about the Coney Island Mall area. Like the octopus ride is supposed to have a ghost. No discernible ghost. It's just there. And then like some of the other chair like spinning ones have ghosts associated with them. And I think in that role, the ghosts are more of a warning to make sure that you're acting appropriately in the ride, and less of an actual paranormal experience is going to happen to you if you're there. And that's one of the roles that ghosts will fall into, is kind of a boogeyman. It's just a word of warning, basically,
I think
that people will heed.
The guy that died in the Eiffel Tower accident, that was sort of a urban legendary story that was told among the people that worked at the park.
Yeah, and it gets more and more exaggerated as time goes by, like him being decapitated or him losing limbs. Another version I read, he was turned into lunch meat by the cables. Like he was just sliced up.
Yeah, and I heard some of those stories from someone that worked there. Like
and they're
college.
Really shocking. And they're the reason why one of the observation decks is not open and all sorts of stuff. And in reality, it was a grad night, so it was a bunch of other seniors. They were partying. Something either smoked or drank, I don't know, happened to him, and he fell past the protective barrier and into the actual elevator shaft. Oof. It's a grisly way to go. I feel very bad for his family. And that's one reason why I like sharing these actual true accounts, to kind of weed through all these urban legends that his family still lives with, knowing that this ghost has been sensationalized about their son or brother or nephew. Jen, it looks like you wanted to say something.
Well, I just had never heard of, I knew about the woman that fell out of Flight Commander, again, because of what the photos I saw working at the paper. And then the two electrocutions, I knew about that. But I didn't know about any of the other stuff. And so now, next time I ride the Beast, I'm going to be looking for those red eyes, because that's one of my favorite things to do, is to look out at the trees when I ride it. I mean, it's just, especially at night, because the smells are there. You get the cool wind on you. It just, especially if it's raining, I've ridden it when it's raining before, or drizzling. I don't know. The Beast just has a whole atmosphere on its own.
I'd love to go sketch at Kings Island. I've never sketched there before. It seems like that would be a really cool place to draw.
We should do that.
We should do like a urban sketchers outing there. That would be really awesome. I mean, and I wish I knew about the graveyard. I can't believe it's something that I never heard of.
Yeah. And I always try to take pictures while I'm there. I once, a friend of mine told me, she's like, you can make Kings Island look so beautiful amongst all the crappy tacky stuff. And I'm like, oh, thank you. But I like all the bright colors. And I mean, I don't mind so much the sticky blue ice cream melting on the ground when people drop it. But otherwise than that, I love all the kind of grimy but also the very beautiful, like when the sun is setting is fun, especially around Diamondback when it sprays up the water. It's so pretty.
I just like the history of all the different rides, knowing that like the carousel, you're riding one that's, I forget how old that one is, where the racer.
It's really old.
Yeah, they're all like historic rides, and I've been invaded by dogs. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
They want to be on the podcast.
They do. They want to be on the podcast. Yeah, it's just, I love how you actually get to be a part of history by riding on these rides. And it's very, I don't want to call it Americana, but in this, especially with the not the Colon Island Mall. Oh my goodness, that would be an adventure.
That sounds like that would be a good name for a roller coaster, the Colon. That's probably just one called.
It'd be very bumpy. Or maybe super fast. You never know. It could be
called the Flaming Colon. See, we could be in the marketing department of a amusement park. I mean, I think that if someone hasn't taken that name already, I mean, I can envision the logo now.
Flaming Colon.
See, I mean, the marketing writes itself.
What would those cars and trains look like? How would you fashion those?
They're kind of in a Fantastic Planet direction, like it's
Goodness.
I've been rewatching The Simpsons. I think this was in The Simpsons and not South Park, but the kids ride Hall of Farts. And it's just,
that could be either. It's hard to say which that would have been.
I can't remember. I want to say it's South Park, but I don't quote me on that. And it just, oh my God.
Oh man.
Well, I think it's interesting. One thing talking about the ghosts at something like Kings Island, is there places that get that many people? Like, I mean, talk about a place where there's a very large quantity of people that go through there. Do those areas tend to have more incidents of sort of activity? If we were talking to the people that are sensitive or whatever, is there more of a, I want to say, what would it be, sort of like when you have that many people that touch an area,
you get a lot of energy.
That's what I'm thinking. Energy.
Yeah.
Like sort of the word debris, but that's not the right word.
You can get kind of an energetic debris going
but
on.
That's not the right word. It'll come to me, right. You know what I mean? It's sort of like they kind of charge the area with, I mean, any area where there's, it kind of makes me think of Ghostbusters, where they talk about New York and having the pink slime underneath and all the people. Like you have a bunch of people there, does it generate a type of energy?
It can. So getting on a more metaphysical bent. So kind of energy attracts like energy. So if you notice any of the stories from Kings Island, none of them are malicious. They're all really fun and playful. So those types of entities are going to stay around, going like basically human ghosts. Excuse me. Please edit that one out. Just human ghosts that want to be playful are going to hang around areas where there's other people that are playful. So you have two of the ghosts that are really prominent are kids under 10.
Yeah.
And that makes sense that they just want to hang out with other kids having fun. And then you have a bunch of teenagers or 20 somethings that were also there to have fun. Like the first gentleman that fell into the pond, I will say I got a bunch of different, when reading the different newspaper articles and accounts about what happened, how he fell in, some of them stated that he fell in because he was sitting on a fence and fell in, but most of them actually, it sounded like he did exactly what you were describing, Christina, which was reaching in, trying to feed the fish, and lost his balance and went in. And then his friend tried to grab him, and then the security guard, and they unfortunately died. But I will say their ghosts are not ones ever reported in Kings Island. They have passed on. They're not going to stick around there. But the ones that had good memories or want to be a part of good memories, like Racer Boy and the Girl in Blue, want to be around. And they're the most prominent ghosts. And Tower Johnny to some extent. Most of his stories are really urban legend. I haven't heard of any recent sightings.
Seems like
it
has to be an urban legend,
Yeah.
Somebody just pulled my earbuds out. There might be a paw coming from them. Yeah, they like to attack them. Sorry.
It's the attack of the pets.
Yes, cat difficulties. He climbed into my lap and took my earbuds with him.
Aww.
I will say, if anybody hears panting on this episode, it's Chewy.
Sure, blame the dog.
Uh-huh.
No,
he got awfully close to the microphone.
It's a spirit or whatever. But I mean, this is really interesting. It makes me want to kind of do ghost hunting there or something.
That's actually happened.
Investigation.
That's actually happened. I know a few people that work there and have actually investigated before ghost hunters went, because a lot of those shows, they have to kind of go to a place that has enough activity to be worth taping at. So here's a little bit of backstage tea, I guess, is that there has to be enough activity at any of these locations for any of these paranormal shows to actually warrant driving all the way out to Ohio to record for several nights. It's not one night. You're looking at 3 to 5. So
do you think they would let like us go and do it?
Well, it depends on who we know.
I do know they do, at least before COVID, they were doing a camp night at Kings Island where you could go, you camp, and I think you're sleeping outside of the park or somewhere in the park, and then you could ride the rides and stuff at night.
Oh.
And then you sleep there or something. It's something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wonder if they would let a group in there, especially a local group.
So cool. That would be
I know. I think they've let news people in after hours, and the special events, of course, get after hours. So, I can't really comment on that. I know it's happened, but I don't know how they did it.
Well, if anyone ever has seen anything, hopefully they'll write to the email and tell us, and we'll.
Yeah, if there's any additional stories that, like, if you were not satisfied with how I told the stories tonight, please email us at, what was it again? That was convincing. Hometown Haunted Mail at gmail.com and say, hey, Kat, you forgot something. And then please educate me on what I forgot. And then we'll read it.
By the way, the guy that got eaten by the tiger or attacked by the lion, whatever, the lion, it was by Banshee.
Oh, is that where Banshee is?
I remember when they had their little safari ride, because it's one of those things that I remember it, but I remember like going to it when I was really little and then going later into Kings Island and wondering what had happened to it because it was gone.
Yeah.
And then thinking, well, was that my imagination? Did they have or was
actually the safari park lasted for a while. Another person was attacked by a lion, but he survived. Though I will say urban legend will tell you that 2 people were attacked, and in fact it was only one. It was John. The other guy did survive, even though he got a lion claw to the throat. He still survived that.
Well, I'll say as somebody that has a cat, several cats, I never understand why people want exotic cats or big cats. Like, they are just so strong, and your little cat like will leap on you and bite on you and stuff. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
They all act the same, but the big ones can kill you. When I was at the San Diego Zoo doing research on my book I did for them, we were looking at some jaguars that weren't on display, and the keeper said, yeah, they're just like your house cats, except they can kill you.
Yeah.
Well,
as evidence that them sitting in cardboard boxes.
And they may not intentionally kill you. It's a lot of times they're just so strong. You're like that mouse you see your cat catch, and it kills really quick. It's just you're like a little doll to them, like a lion.
I would love to pet a big cat, but the only way I'm going to do it is if they are knocked out and tranquilized, because I don't know.
I'm good.
Or the babies.
I don't need to pet a large cat.
There's so many stories of people getting injured by big cats, like when they're going to a TV studio. That happened in Cincinnati. Was it Bob Braun's show? They had a tiger that came in, and a kid accidentally got mauled. I don't remember if it was Bob Braun for sure. Our listeners can tell us. But, these animals get stressed when they're in a different situation than normal. And
especially if they're loud.
Yeah, and something happened, where somebody got injured. Even Siegfried and Roy, which he just died. That for years worked around big cats, but it only takes one unfortunate incident and your neck's broken, or whatever. So that's why little cats better than big cats.
Yes,
agreed. Right. My studio door magically opened.
By your dog friend?
Yeah, I think it was Mickey this time.
Yeah, our cat Bob just learned how to open doors. So he's been pushing doors open.
Yeah, so did my toddler.
Oh no.
Uh-oh.
So
Kings Island used to have dolphins, which I also thought was cool.
Yeah, they had like a water show,
wow.
didn't they?
Yeah.
As I recall, like I think a lot of amusement parks have stopped doing stuff like that too because it's just so expensive. Like having live animals like that costs a lot. People have to keep them.
I just feel sad whenever I see them there.
Yeah.
Well, really, I mean, caring for the animals in an amusement park's probably much more difficult than a zoo where you have a lot more specialists and stuff like that. I think that it's really fallen out of favor to have live animals at your amusement park, and now it's much more. I think back then, you look at the history of exhibitions in general, like we were talking about, the Cincinnati Zoo used to have Native Americans living there.
Yeah.
That I did not know. As
they
an
had a
exhibit?
bunch of Sioux. As an exhibit, they had some Sioux Indians living there. It was that there's something about that time where they would like actually put living people on display. The time of, and it was totally ridiculous.
It was the height of freak shows too, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it was sort of a way to, there wasn't television then. We have that now, but instead it's a reality show or whatever. Instead of having a reality show, you went and saw the person on display somewhere.
Oh, those poor people.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say if we made much progress, but one hopes that we're eventually gonna make progress. But
on that note,
we got a hometown haunt.
Yeah, we do. Who wants to read it?
I can do it.
Yeah, go ahead and read it.
All right. So this one is from our friend. I don't know if they're our friend, but they are now, Aaron. So thank you, Aaron. They write, when my grandmother was a little girl, her mother brought her a Cupid doll, despite her not wanting it. My grandmother insisted that the thing was evil. She claimed that it would glare at her at night, would pinch her, and would urinate on her when she held it. She raised such a fuss that her father threw it in the furnace, but claimed it laughed as it burned.
Actually, that's why I put that, because that's why I put the doll story, because it seemed like it all sort of came back to. I've heard of people having nightmares about dolls before. It seems like there is, like, there was somebody I grew up with who did not like dolls, and her parents gave her one, and she had nightmares about it.
Oh,
yeah. Cupid dolls are those weird, like, in the right light, they look really satanic. Like. Yeah, they kind of that little precocious little smile. There you go for an art student. Really scary illustrations or photos of Cupid dolls, a la Hitchcock.
So, I had a Molly doll, American Girl. My mom got it for me for Christmas one year. I swear to God, she was haunted.
Really?
She used to move on her own. But I'm pretty sure it was my best friend at the time just messing with me. She would turn her around when she'd come over or whatever. But she stayed in a box for years. But then I also have a nice collection of dolls that I inherited from my grandmother from the 50s and on. And some of them are
right behind you.
No. See, I'm sitting with my back to a wall for a reason, Kat. So shit can't come up behind me.
Well,
I can see what's coming.
Jen's been here. I have a collection of masks and like dolls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I've not ever seen.
But your masks, well, I guess you could argue that for dolls, but your masks are artistic.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how you feel about stuff like that. Some people are. I had a cousin who brought her son, and he was terrified, and we were like, really? We just didn't really think about it. But if you're a kid, it seems really real. And maybe if you do feel a bad feeling about a doll or something, maybe there is something wrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
Listen to your kids. I suppose if they're scared of something, get rid of it.
Well, yeah.
Well,
my brother had one of those My Buddy dolls.
Well, I'm scared of those.
Yeah. So did My Buddy come first, or did Chucky the movie come first?
My Buddy, I think, came first.
I think,
and then
yeah,
the
I think
movie
My
was kind of
Buddy.
based off of My Buddy.
I think
But-
that's how it went.
I mean, it was
Okay.
marketing, a doll for boys, which really
Yeah.
the doll for boys was G.I. Joe. They just had littler
Yeah.
dolls.
Oh, my brother loved My Buddy doll. Loved
Yeah,
it.
I don't
Slept
see
with
any
it every
problem
night.
with that.
No,
He was
there's
so
nothing wrong with
cute.
having whatever kind
And
of you want.
he was all scuffed up. My mom found him a couple years ago and I took a picture of him and he was all scuffed up. So he was well loved and played with. But, at the time I had seen Chucky was a brand new movie or whatever the name of that movie was. And
Was
You
it
think
called-
it's
what was the-
Chucky?
No,
I
I think
slept
she's right. I
next-
think it was Child's Play or something, wasn't
Child's
it?
Oh,
Play.
you're right.
Yeah.
God, what is wrong with me? I should have known that. But
We all should have. We're just like, oh yeah, it's Chucky. It's totally Chucky.
so the bedroom I grew up in, right, did not have a wall, did not have a door. And to get to my brother's room, it was an enclosed porch, and you would have to walk through my room to get to his room. And at night, it was probably just my brother moving around. But in my mind, it was the stupid My Buddy doll that was creeping me the F out while I was trying to get sleep. Yeah.
I mean, I had a Raggedy Ann doll that I loved, and there's supposed to be a super possessed one.
Oh, yeah, that's what
The Warrens.
Annabelle. That's
Yeah,
what
yeah.
is
Annabelle's
based off of
on.
that. With
Mine
the,
wasn't.
Yeah.
Mine actually got damaged by us. My brother and I were fighting over and tore her arm off. So
Aw.
she probably has nightmares about us more than we had nightmares about her.
Yeah.
There's horrible children.
That'd be a
Trying to
fun
torment-
little one shot to illustrate a doll being afraid of children. I guess that's Toy Story, but taken in a
Yeah.
darker place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
darker-
little kid next door
Yeah.
that tortured the poor toys.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Well, that was
Toys,
actually
yeah.
Sid.
that was the Simpsons this
Sid,
year.
yeah.
That was the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror this year was Toy Story, and Bart was torturing them and sanding them, and so the dolls all the toys banded together and then like did horrible things to him. It was a great episode.
Yeah, their Treehouse of Horrors tend to be pretty good.
I think
I like
the
those.
last couple seasons of the Simpsons have been really good. People that say they don't like the Simpsons anymore don't watch it anymore, but it's really, I mean, those writers really put a lot into it. I mean, I think it's a very well written show.
Well, I had stopped watching it when I canceled my cable about 4 years ago. And so now that it's on Disney Plus, I started from the beginning. And I think I'm
that's
on
a great way.
season 17.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
on
Tori
it.
and I have been
Yeah.
watching it since it started coming out together.
Yeah.
Which means we're very old and have been together for a very long time.
Well, I'm old too, Christina. I remember it on the Tracy Ullman show.
Oh, that was great. I love I
Yeah.
love Tracy Ullman.
Yeah.
But we digress.
Yeah.
I think this has been a great show. I think we should.
Yeah. We'll see you next week. Thank you for joining us on the Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities presents Hometown Haunts, the podcast. I am Kat Cloco along with Christina Wald and Jen Kohler. You can catch us on iTunes. Also catch us on YouTube. You get to see all our cute pets there. And you can follow us on social media. So we're at Sin Cabinet Curio on Twitter, and Cincy Cabinet of Curiosities on Instagram. And if you have your own hometown haunt you would love to share with us or correct me on any of these ghost stories from Kings Island, you can email us at hometownhauntedmail@gmail.com. I'm Kat, and everyone stay spooky. Bye-bye.